Happy New Year and welcome back to Hockey North. I'm your host, Karissa Donkin, and it's a big day. It's an exciting day. Hockey Canada and the Canadian Olympic Committee just announced the roster that will be competing in Italy in less than a month now. Not sure how that happened at the Olympics for the Canadian women's hockey team. So it's a big day, and here to break it down with me is someone who knows a heck of a lot about winning an Olympic gold medal because she's done it. It's Tessa Bonhomme. She's also the co-host of the Jocks and Jills podcast. Welcome to the show, Tessa.
Thanks for having me, Karissa. Good seeing you again.
No, always good to see you. The first question I have for you, because this is something that I will never know how it feels, and most of our viewers will never know how it feels. How does it feel to get that call?
So I never got a call. I actually had to walk in a room and receive the the information face to face. So I've been on both ends where it didn't go the way I wanted, and um, got to walk out of that room super excited. I will say this: both don't feel great because you're such a tight knit group that some of your friends don't make the team, and it's really hard to celebrate when you care about your teammates that much because that is the culture that Team Canada does develop. Troy Ryan and Gina Kingsbury are great at it as well. Um, I remember in 2010, one of my teammates, Jillian Ferrari, didn't make it, and that gutted me, and I felt really bad, and it was really hard for me to celebrate. So it wasn't until maybe a week later that I finally actually got to sit down and take a breath and be like, holy smokes, like we did this. I did this. And I say we as in my family, all my trainers, the coaches, everyone that had helped me. But, when I received the call, the first person that I got a hold of was my sister. And to be able to tell her, she's been my rock my whole life, the one that keeps me grounded and level. It was awesome. It was like a cry moment. I got to tell my parents, obviously, and it was great and it's awesome and that fun stuff. And then, all of a sudden your phone's blowing up and the news starts trickling in. And it is great because it is a lifetime of hard work. It's a lifetime goal for a lot of these players. It's truly the moment that it kicks in is when you actually arrive and you get to go to opening ceremonies or you walk around Athletes Village and you're seeing all of these superstar athletes that you've grown up watching on TV too from other sports. So it's an exciting time, but it's also a hard time, like I said, because some of your friends are missing an opportunity to get that experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine the anxiety as you're walking into that room. I think I would just dissolve into the air. I would just be sand. I wouldn't even find out whether I made the team or not. So let's break down the roster. We're going to bring it up for you. It's a 23 player roster, and we've got 16 players returning from the 2022 Olympics, that dominant team that won gold. Of course, they're led once again by their captain, the woman they call Captain Clutch, Marie-Philippe Poulin. No surprise there. We're not really breaking any news on that front. Lots of other familiar faces. We've got Sarah Fillier, reigning Rookie of the Year with the New York Siren. She's coming back. 5 of the 7 players who we saw on defense back in 2022, and of course, Anne-Renee Desbiens never lost a game at the Olympics. She'll be back with Emmerance Mashmeyer close behind her as well. So just let's do an initial vibe check here, Tessa. What surprised you the most about this roster? Anything kind of catch you, shock you a little bit when you saw it?
I want to say I'm not surprised, but I was surprised by one thing. I was surprised not to see Primerano on the roster. I was expecting to inject some type of youth in this Olympic roster, just looking ahead 4 years, because you can go to as many world championships as you want, and that's great experience. I'm not taking anything away from that, but the Olympic Games really does just hit different, and I think this would have been a very good time to add that to her resume to allow her to deposit it into her experience bank. Now, look, she didn't have to be a player that played every single game, but just to be there and to absorb and see what takes place and see what happens and feel the magnitude of the moment, I think would have been huge. But I'm not surprised in a sense that Gina Kingsbury and Troy Ryan went with experience. And now you mentioned 2022 and players that learned how to win. I think more importantly was the 2018 loss. Now you have a group of players. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry if I missed anybody, but 10 players on this current roster who understand what it feels like and knows what it takes to lose, which is just as important in an Olympic Games to know what it takes to win. Then you have players from 2014 who know what it's like to be down and come back in dramatic fashion in Jenner, Spooner, Pooh, and Joss from 2014. So that's a core right there. Those 4 players are a solid core. That's experience that they're going to rely on and lean on. Obviously, the win is very important. The ladies know what it feels like, but if you talk to any American player that won in 2018, they will tell you they relied heavily on learning from every single one of those losses to be able to get that gold in 2018. So I think Gina is a very calculated person. I've never seen one take such organized and clean notes to be as diligent as she is in getting to know the players personally, because this is huge. It's a short-term tournament. We need to remember, right? So the locker room has to be a really safe, cohesive, fun place. And you can't have beef, you can't have drama. There can't be someone that bugs you on a random day because you need to be on every day. And the first game of the Olympics, these players know, doesn't necessarily need to be their best. It needs to be a gradual incremental climb, and the foot needs to be on the gas pedal the whole time. And they've got a group that knows and understands this. Like you said, in 2022, they got a handful of those players back, and that is huge. That is huge. There's nothing more than you want donning that Canadian jersey than to go back to back and to keep that gold medal on Canadian soil and to understand what it means, to play against maybe some of your former teammates that you played with in university and to see them lose or to go in a corner and battle with your best pal. Those things matter. So Gina Kingsbury and Troy Ryan heavily leaned on experience, familiarity, players that they trust and they know can get the job done. Everyone's panicked about the rivalry series. Talk to any player that played in 2002. They didn't see a win leading up to the Olympics against the Americans. It does not matter. None of that stuff matters. All it is what did you take from those games that we can learn from, and let's apply it moving forward. And every player in that locker room needs to believe that the team that they have named is a team that can win a gold medal. This Olympics, I will say, I don't know where you're going to go with this after questions, but I just want to get this out there. This Olympics is going to be the most exciting women's hockey tournament. These teams are so close now, thanks to the PWHL. Players no longer from any of the European teams hold Canadian or American players on pedestals. They're not untouchable. They are training next to them every day. They're friends with them now. Now they're human, and they're all on a level playing field. Watch out for Czechia. Watch out for Finland. I really hope Switzerland has a good tournament this year. I'm not going to bet on them, but Czechia and Finland to me are two teams that can really surprise people. So I don't want to go out here and say it's guaranteed Canada, USA in the final, because I definitely am not putting my money on that this year. This is going to be a really, really fun Olympic tournament to watch.
I'd say one of the players I'm most excited to see is Christina Countenkova. Like she's been
Yes,
so fun to watch this season. Her at an Olympics is going to be incredible. Can't wait to see that shot at the Olympics.
I
To
know.
your point, I think there are people who maybe they only tune in to women's hockey once every 4 years. I think they're going to flick it on this year and they're going to be like, "Holy lifted, this is fast," because it
Yeah.
is faster than it was 4 years ago. But talking about that experience that the team is relying on, Tessa, Troy Ryan will often correct people when they say, oh, you have an older team, and he'll say experienced
Yeah.
team. But does it, the one thing Canada doesn't have this year is centralization. You've been through centralization. That's always been an advantage for Canada. And for people at home who don't know what that is, that's when, players would train and live together for months and, work to make the team. And I can only imagine how grueling it was not having that. Is that, a bit of something that kind of works against Canada a little bit?
I don't want to say works against just because of a lot of the players that are on this roster have been through it and they are still such a tight knit group because of that. Um, but just to reiterate what you said, it's where you move away from your teams. Everybody packs up and moves to Calgary. They put their life on hold, and it's night and day. All you're doing is training and playing for the Olympics, and they put you through a grueling, grueling schedule to make sure that everybody gets to know everyone at their highs and their lows. So there's no surprises when you do get to a stressful time in the tournament, or maybe run into a little bit of adversity. Do I think this is going to work against them? No. I think the fact that they had a very hard time at the rivalry series is a good thing. I'm a firm believer, and I don't like when things go too smooth. Any player that plays at a high level will tell you it's great when your team has a bad warm up. You know it's going to be a good game. When you got a smooth warm up and everything's going good and everybody's picking corners and goalies are making the saves they should be in the warm up, you're kind of like, uh oh, things might go awry. However, I think this team does have the experience. They have players, on their roster that have won NCAA championships as well that are making their first time appearance, and Sophie Jakes. And the three goaltenders that they've chosen are unbelievable. So it doesn't matter what happens to any of them, whether they're having the tournament of their life, maybe it's a nightmare, or maybe they run into injury. I feel like all three are ready and set to play in those big games between Kaylee Osborne, Emma Smashmeyer, and Renee Desbiens. Obviously, it's ideal to have a centralization, but I don't think it's going to be super impactful on this team at all based on the experience that we talked about.
Yeah, and let's talk about defense a little bit. We talked about Chloe Primorano earlier, being a little bit surprised that she's not there. We've got Sophie Jakes making her Olympic debut. She's been incredible, obviously, in the PWHL. Katie Tabin is a name that I think maybe not a lot of people had on their list going into this. Obviously, she was one of the 30 players who attended the camps. Something interesting about her is, we've never seen her at a major tournament, which is kind of unusual for Hockey Canada. But is this Tessa, do you think this is, I guess the beginning of the impact of the PWHL, like somebody who's been able to play their way onto this team because this league exists?
Yeah, and to show her worth in front of two of the assistant coaches of the Olympic team, right? You got Carolyn Willett on your bench and Corey Chevry, who Carolyn Willett is a very decorated Olympian, a player who I looked up to and relied on, and was a role model for me my entire career. Who's behind the bench, and she knows what it takes. I mean, Caro played defense in the 2006 Olympics, which might surprise some people. So Caro knows what it's like to be, in a tournament, maybe in a new spot, playing in, well, it's the same position Taven's played. However, maybe in a new spot that might be stressful for you. But I'm gonna turn things over to Kayla Barnes, who played in the Olympics with the U.S. national team in 2018 and won a gold medal with them. Previously, she had only played with the U.S. under 18 team. She had never suited up in a U.S. national jersey. Her first time playing with the national team was at the Olympics, and safe to say the kid's a player. And so, does it matter that much? Probably not, based on Kayla Barnes. Am I putting Katie Tabin on the same level as Kayla Barnes? No, they're completely different players. But clearly, Corey Chevry, Troy Ryan, Carolyn Willett, and all of the Team Canada staff saw something in Katie Tabin that they could possibly use in this tournament to be successful.
And up front, I don't think really any significant surprises. We see Olympic debuts from Kristen O'Neill, Julia Gosling, Jennifer Gardner, Daryl Watts. I think about somebody like Kristen O'Neill, who was on that taxi squad in
Yeah.
2022. And it's just like a player who's super annoying to play against,
Yeah.
face-off specialist. But Natalie Spooner, that's someone who's going to her fourth Olympics. I had to do some quick math in my head
That's
there.
okay.
You know her well. You've
Yeah.
you've played with her lots. And she's struggled a bit this season. I think kind of coming back from such a serious injury. But what does she bring to this team, do you think, on the ice, but also off the ice too?
Locker room stuff matters, and Spooner's that. She's the glue. She's the gel. She's the lightheartedness that you need before an Olympic Games. I remember in 2010, I was sitting in my locker before the gold medal game, and I was thinking, like, okay, how should I be acting and feeling right now? Like, how should I be? And I was in my own head a little bit. And Jen Botterill came in the room and turned the music on and started dancing the way she always did every game. And I was like, oh, I just need to be me. This is it. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. And Spooner brings that. Spooner's that fun, but she's that competitor. And like I said, she was a part of that 2014 team. She does have a big voice in that locker room, and a big voice in a singing karaoke situation as well. She's fantastic. I can vouch. Um, but it's that experience that she brings, and they might not need Spooner to be the player that's putting up 4 goals this tournament. They might need Spooner to be the one that's just taking eyes away from any goaltender that's in the net, that's wreaking havoc in front, that's hard on the forecheck, that's playing a solid, sound defensive game. They might need her as a role player, only playing specific amount of minutes a game, and she's the type of player that would be okay with that. And I think that's what Gina and Troy really lean on and rely on is we're going to hand you a role. You might not be happy with it, but we need you to do it to the best of your abilities. And that's the type of player and person Spooner is. So, do I expect to see Spooner in, an Olympic uniform 4 years from now? I have no idea. Don't care. I think that she's great for this team right now, and she's going to do everything she can to make sure that this team's successful at the end.
Last one for you, Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Yeah.
Going to her fifth Olympics. Only two women have ever, actually, only two hockey players, period, have ever won 5 Olympic medals. Jana Hefford, Haley Wickenheiser, the list ends there.
Yeah.
Marie-Philippe Poulin is looking to be that person. You played with her as well. Best player in the world, in my opinion. What does she bring to this team, and what makes her special in terms of being the person that people look to, other than scoring the big goals? I mean, we always talk about that, but I think there's so much more that she brings, whether it's off the ice or even defensively, that we don't talk about as much. What makes her special?
Yeah, I think the unique thing about Pooh is she was never a big talker in the locker room because she didn't have to be. She's an all-star player. She's the most skilled. Her hockey IQ is above and beyond anyone else's out there, but she plays a 200-foot game. I mean, I don't know if you remember in I think it was 2021 World Championship in the quarterfinals, it might have been, but they were playing against Switzerland. She blocked a shot with her throat. And that's just the type of player she is. It doesn't matter what game she's playing, she's laying it all out on the line. I mentioned she's not the most vocal in the locker room because she doesn't have to be. She leads the way by the way she plays, and everybody follows suits. And the voices in the locker room, that's what the assistant captains are for, and Blair Turnbull and Renata Fast. And like I said, Brianne Jenner, all of these experienced vets that are on the team as well. What makes Pooh special is she's got that clutch DNA. She can't shake it. It's in her. Even if she tried not to score, it'd probably bounce in off of her and go in. And I think that ignites a lot of hope in the team. It's helpful when you have a player like that, but I think this team understands that they need to do it by committee this year. It can't just be praying to God that Pooh puts one in the last minute or scores 2 or 3, whatever it may be. And I think that they're experienced enough that they understand it. Don't get me wrong, they're looking at every roster that's coming out. I know Sweden hasn't announced theirs yet, but they've seen Czechia's roster, they've seen the Americans roster, and they're understanding and realizing, what it's going to take to be successful continuously throughout this tournament to get themselves in that gold medal game and inevitably get that gold medal placed around their neck again. And Pooh's going to be leading the charge, playing the right way. As offensively sound as she is, she's equally as defensively sound. I mean, you can look on the bench at any point in the game, no matter what situation your team is in, and Pooh's the first player that comes to your mind.
And with that said, I mean, I think, nobody is better under pressure. I've said this to someone before. If I was on the side of the road and needed a life-saving surgery, she goes by in her RV. She's not a doctor, not a surgeon. I'd hand her the scalpel. I think she could
Totally
figure it out.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tessa, for joining
Appreciate
us. This is Hockey North. We're back with some PWHL action on CBC Sports this weekend. The league visits Quebec City again this year on the Takeover Tour. It's Montreal against Vancouver inside the Videotron Center, one of 3 games on the schedule for Sunday. Going to be a busy and exciting weekend you can watch on CBC and CBC Gem at 2 p.m. Eastern. And of course, you'll be able to catch up with our friend Tessa here twice a week on the Jocks and Jills podcast on the PWHL YouTube channel, and they'll also have lots of coverage during the Olympics too. So this has been Hockey North. Oh, I can't wait. Thanks for joining us. Take care.